launch here. So, as I said, this meeting, format for me is back to my old days of COVID, drifting back to normal life. But I've heard a lot of people saying that they miss the collaboration and the communication that we had cross brokerage. So, your industry is unique and it fascinates me because you don't only compete, but you cooperate together. Which is an unusual industry to do that, to have your competitors to also be on the same side of or different sides of the same transaction, wanting to get it over the finish line. So I am honored to have that platform to bring you together. As you know, I'm a lender. That's what I do for a living. And my tagline has always been, let me know how I can support you with your business. So that is my goal today. And why Real Elevated? So I wanted to elevate the conversation in real estate and lending. I feel like our area is unique. We definitely have a different caliber, I think, of business people in the industry. And so elevating the conversations in real estate and lending, and that's how we came up with Real Elevate. But I'm still with cross country. That's what I do for a living. This is basically me branding this meeting so we can move forward. And I hope to have maybe monthly topics. If you have anything that you think would be a great topic, please, let me know. I've got a few ideas in terms of, obviously insurance is a big question, which I think we need to wait a while because I'm not sure anybody knows what the heck's going to happen with the FAIR plan and all of that. But, Bitcoin is another one that a couple of people have said they'd like to learn more about. So how to buy a house, or, if that's going to come into real estate. So moving on, today I would like to introduce my friend and my colleague, Michael Dreyfus. He needs a little introduction to most of you. He's the broker owner of Golden Gate Sotheby's and a market leader in Palo Alto and the surrounding areas. And we're joined by Jason Haber. So Jason, thanks for joining us. Jason's a top producing agent with Compass in New York. He sells New York and Florida. And he's an industry thought leader. He co-founded American Real Estate Association, which is what we're here to talk about today. And he's a national trade group that advocates for policies supportive of agents in the real estate industry. Jason, the last time I saw something, it was 5,000 agents. I'm sure you can update us on how many now have joined you. And he co-founded this with Mauricio Mansky, who you may have heard of, who founded the agency and I understand finished Beverly Hills 2 on Netflix, or buying Beverly Hills 2 on Netflix. I have to say I haven't seen it. So anyway, both of you, thank you for joining. And Michael is here to help me because I am a lender, not a realtor, to get all the questions that you as agents need to know about area and the future of real estate. So thanks, Michael, for taking it from here.
Thank you, Nikki. Thanks for organizing this. It's a great topic. And Jason, thanks for coming on and talking to us. I think the more interesting thing that we're going to get out of today for all you guys is more than just the organization that Jason and Mauricio are starting, but really kind of a look into why and what is really going on in our trade businesses. And I think a lot of us aren't quite aware. We know that we're not happy about some things, but a lot of this is very institutional. And I think as Jason tells his story, you guys are going to learn a lot about where things are right now and how we've been a little hamstrung in the past by this monolith of the National Association of Realtors, and where this ends up, if it's with them still around. Most likely they will be, but competition is an interesting concept. So Jason, why don't you start by telling us about your real estate journey and where you are and how you got to where you are now in real estate.
Sure. So, I've been in real estate now for about 18 years. I had my own firm at one point. I've switched firms a few times. I came to real estate with a background in government and politics. And in fact, I was a professor at John Jay College for a number of years when I started working in real estate. Of course, when you start in real estate, the pay is very low. So I was a professor for 5 years, my first 5 years, that I was in real estate. So I had this sort of policy background that I never really used much in real estate. I'll tell you, the only time that I ever really used it to any degree, and you can Google this, and this was a big story back in 2009 when I was very new in the industry. Muammar Gaddafi tried to rent a townhouse from me on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And the Libyan government had contacted me and they wanted this house. And, they had been calling other agents saying he's this really good guy. He's giving this speech at the UN, and, agents were falling for this. And so I knew who Gaddafi was. And just a few weeks before they had contacted me, they had released the man who had been convicted of bombing Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland. And he was released from prison very early after serving a very, very short sentence. And so I said to the Libyan government, you can have the townhouse for free, and I'll even waive my fee. You just have to send the guy back to prison. They got very mad at me, and they hung up the phone. Well, the postscript of the story is, who did they end up renting from after I rejected them? Any guesses?
No idea.
Donald Trump.
There we go. I should have got it.
I was too scared to say it.
Yeah, he rented them.
Come on, Michael.
I should have got that. I was at softball.
Yeah.
Sorry,
he
proud.
rented them land in New Jersey. True story.
That's
you can
great.
look it up. So, really since then, I focused on my agent business and kept sort of separate my organizing policy background. And then that changed abruptly for me I guess about a year and a half ago. So the New York Times, Labor Day 2023, comes out with a story about sexual harassment in our industry at the National Association of Realtors. Not just harassment, as if that's not bad enough, but a lot of incidents of it, like a lot. And I read the article, like everyone else, and I was like, oh, well, like, obviously this guy's going to be gone. They're going to make changes. Like, everyone's going to be up in arms about this. And to my surprise, the article was met with silence. And I think like silence and indifference is probably, if you ever read any of Elie Wiesel's books, silence and indifference are probably some of the worst features of human existence, especially in the face of something really bad. And that afternoon the article came out, and no one in the industry said anything. It was weird. So I just, first I think I just put something out on Twitter saying, whatever we call it now, saying like, this is ridiculous. There should be changes made. Nothing. The next day, almost on a whim, frankly, I launched this petition calling for the then president of NAR to resign. And I remember we got 12 signatures. And I wrote to my friend, I can't believe how many signatures we got on this. We got 12 signatures. Little did I know it would take off and get over 1,000 signatures over the next few hours. And he resigned. And I thought I was done, right? Like, whatever. I just had joined NAR. When you're in New York City, you're not NAR members. You're members of something called REBNY. So I wasn't even a member of NAR for those last 18 years, only for the last 6 months, because I just got licensed in Florida. So I was done. But the New York Times, in their follow-up story, mentioned my name. And then the phone calls, text messages, emails, I had to get all these like private messaging apps. In fact, as I'm sitting here, like one of them that I use, Signal, from one of my victims just wrote to me. I got messages from people around the country, mostly women, but not all. And what surprised me was how deep this problem of harassment went in the industry. Everyone knew. Everyone knew. And no one cared. And I have many examples I could give. I'll just give you one of the more outrageous ones. In West Virginia, I don't know if anyone's ever been there. The Realtors of West Virginia, here we go, we have one. So the Realtor Association of West Virginia reached out to me and said that the head of the association been harassing women for 10 years, and they don't know what to do about it because they've been contacting NAR for 10 years asking for help. And they said to me, they're like, look, we're in West Virginia. We have no access to media. We don't know how to organize. We didn't know what to do. And I was like, wow, but really 10 years? Like, is this 10 months? Like, how long? Anyway, they forwarded me emails going back to 2013 where they were literally begging for help. and help never came. So what happens is when you have that kind of framework, it empowers the harasser and it delegitimizes the victims. And so then you had, for 10 years, you had more and more victims because help wasn't coming. This is the culture that existed at our national trade group. And so what I did was I convened a group around the country. We held this Zoom. Some people were anonymized, some people were off camera, and they were sharing their own stories. But we came up with a reform plan, basically a 4-point plan of things that needed to change, people that needed to go, policies that needed to be changed. We put this out there in the public square in the form of an online petition. And we did a day of action in Chicago where NAR is based. We did a protest press conference outside their office. We got Great Places to Work to remove their name from NAR. We got them NAR removed as a great place to work, which they were very proud of. We got the CEO fired. We got the head of HR fired. We advocated for, and they were then fired, I should say. And a bunch of other changes as well. And, I felt like we made a difference in the industry, and I was happy about that. As we're making these reforms, last fall, or sorry, about a year and a half ago now, the lawsuit, the famous now Stitzer trial, is about to take place in Kansas City. And NAR's messaging on this was, we got this, we're good, no problem. Gonna win. Jury comes back. This is a complicated class action. It's a complicated case. Jury comes back faster than a flight from New York to Palm Beach Airport. 2.5 hours. Unbelievably fast. Devastating verdict. Once again, NAR failed us. And then came the settlement. Once again, if you were a firm in the $2 billion and up club, you're on your own. Weren't covered in the $418 million settlement. So there's all this anger between these two crises, which are not linked, right? Nothing to do with each other. Lawsuit was not about sexual harassment. But in my mind, they were inextricably linked because they spoke to institutional rot. And then as you look,
and let's talk and arrogance, right? And talk about that. I mean, that how the arrogance, it comes from, I think, from the monopolistic aspect of it, the fact that there is no choice and there is no competition. Right. There is, they can do what they want to do.
Right. I mean, they have a vice grip like no one else in the industry. 17% of all doctors are members of the American Medical Association. 15% of all lawyers are members of the Federal American Bar Association, but 99% of all working agents are members of NAR. 99. The only other trade group that operates that way is AARP. But when you turn 50, they send you a birthday card, not a bill. This is how they've gotten their power, because they have the 3-way agreement, which compels everyone here to pay dues. You have no choice. If you were in any other industry, I don't care what industry you're in, you have a choice of joining your federal trade group. No one has been able to explain to me what the federal trade group has to do with accessing your local data in an MLS for your local market. I still have never heard the explanation for that. At the same time, if you look at public opinion polls of our industry, we rank just below the used car salesman. Below. Why? If I was going to sell you one share of Apple stock, I'd have to get certified. I'd have to go through extensive coursework. I couldn't just sell it to you. If I want to sell you a home, though, in this country, depending what state you're in, California might be a little different. New York is very easy. Florida is harder. 30 days, 45 days, I'm off to the races and I'm good to go in a pretty easy test. We've kept the bar low to entry. And who's benefited by having so many agents in this country? 3 million agents for 5 million deals. Well, it's not you and I, because those who are lower professionals bring down the reputation of the industry. But the trade group that benefits from mandatory dues benefits from more and more agents. So we're on this treadmill here. More agents is more dues, is better for the National Trade Group. When I started, I was very green. I actually kept referring to NAR as NRA. And when I started doing interviews, I actually had to write on my hand NAR because I kept just calling them the NRA. Maybe they had more in common than I thought. I don't know. But I started out very green, but the more I learned, the more shocked I was. I had no idea. Maybe you did. They're the largest trade group in America. They're the biggest political donor in America. Our trade group is a behemoth. It's a monster. I mean, a monster can be good or bad, but it's massive in size. Why in the world would I be dumb enough to start a new trade group that would try to compete with them? Well, like, you guys are in Palo Alto, right? Like, you work with disruptors all the time. You have to start somewhere, and if no one else was going to do it, you know, my thought, and I teamed up with Mauricio Umansky on this, who some of you may know, was why not? Really can't do any worse. What are we gonna do? So we started with the foundation that more wasn't better, that less is actually more. We wanted to raise standards and change the narrative about real estate professionals around the country.
Let's talk about that
Yeah.
a little bit, because I think that's a great point, particularly with, you know, what just came out the other day, that 71% of the real estate agents have not done a deal last year,
Right.
and yet they are all realtors and they all are members,
Right. They're
and
paying dues.
how that influences policy, because you're not going to raise educational requirements, you're not going to do a lot of things that's going to, you know, aggravate that majority, and as a matter of fact, you're going to dumb things down in order to keep them all around. And to me, that has been the slip all through, from NAR to CAR to local organizations. Once everybody buys into that, and by the way, MLSs as well, you know, once everybody buys into membership at all cost, you know, rather than, I think, where you guys may be going, and I'll let you speak to that, with, you know, a lesser membership, a more educated membership, and maybe higher dues. You know, that is the big paradigm shift to me. And then, you know, competition, just competition.
Yeah.
Your competition can make them better, possibly, right?
Well, that's the hope. I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
we're going to force them into insolvency or anything like that. I mean, we understand they have a 108-year, multi-billion-dollar head start over us. And by the way, good luck raising money for a trade group that's nonprofit, where there's no shareholders and no return on equity. So we've had a
Yeah.
lot of venture funds, when we first announced last year, this week last year actually, contact us, and I couldn't take any of their money. So we rely on member dues, which, by the way, for this year are a grand total of $20 for the whole year, because we know we're new. We offer a $1,500 level 2 for founding members, which is good for 10 years, but we want people to be with us on this journey, and it's literally $20 to join. So, and by the way, I put all this information on my Instagram. You can look for me there at Jason Haber, and you'll see all the posts we make about our dues and our plans. But we try very hard to get into the conversation, to inject, you know, new ideas into the conversation, because we're losing, like, around the country. Our industry is losing to policymakers who don't understand us, and the public that doesn't like us. There are these interesting polls about, we're a lot like Congress in some ways. There's these really interesting polls that people hate Congress, but they love their representative in Congress, which is exactly why we get to the point where Congress can have a 14% approval rating, but a 97% reelection per elected official. So our industry is sort of like that, where people hate the industry, but they love their agent in most cases. And so what we want to do is help educate the public as to what it is that we do, and policymakers too, who see this charade on like the reality shows. As you all know, of course, like that, I have no relationship to that. I have no idea what they're talking about half the time. So we want to counter that. And so we're starting with the Federal Trade Group. And just 5 days ago, we announced our first local chapter in New York. So we absorbed a group in New York called NIRAC of highly professional agents. It's our first local chapter. And we're already setting about to meet with candidate. There's an election for mayor in New York in June. We're already meeting with the mayoral candidates. We're putting policy positions together just for New York exclusively. We have our first town hall meeting on a zoning reform in a month from today, a month from yesterday. So we're getting involved in local policy in New York. And we hope to change the conversation there amongst the elected officials. New York has been very hostile. If some of you may know this, New York has been very, very hostile to our industry. And the idea is to replicate this model around the country and to have chapters everywhere in time. The local chapters focusing on these local issues. But again, membership to the federal remains optional. We don't want people to we don't want people to ever feel compelled to join. We want to earn it. And so
do you see so you're going to have a setup of local membership, federal membership, and if we can get through this three-party rule, eventually the state organizations could be floating free. And as a real estate agent, I can say, I want to belong to Areas Local, I want to belong to CAR, and I want to belong maybe to your national or maybe not. And just kind of pick and choose of where you want to be. Are you going to try to do anything in that middle ground? That seems to be the hardest ground to me, the California Association of Realtor ground, where they're so involved in contract formation, which God, that might be going away too. But but anyways, that feels like a lot more realtor or agent reliant organizations. Your state associations. Maybe not the case as much elsewhere as in California, but ours definitely is that way.
Yes, California state would be very tough, but there are others that are a little more fractured and in a mood for rebellion, let's just say.
Yeah.
So we've been talking. We'll see where these conversations go. These things take time. We announced a year ago. We only opened up membership in September. So, this is all very, very new. We just had our first event last week. So, we're extraordinarily new onto the scene. But people know about it. I don't know how many on this, on the Zoom heard about us before, but we've definitely been, we don't do any paid media, no advertising. We've spent $0 on customer acquisition. No one takes a salary, not a penny for the time we put in. It's all just to give back to the industry. But people have heard about us throughout the country and are interested in us throughout the country.
So what would it look like if somebody or a group wanted to do a local area association here?
So what we say is put 10 people together who have some clear ideas on policy and like what are the pain points, the policy pain points in the local market, and can we address that? Is there an existing group that can fold in and join us, or do we have to create something from scratch? We can do either one. It just sort of depends.
And then they self-organize is what your thought would be. Do they form an entity? They form a board?
Yes, both.
Yeah. Okay.
Board, entity, and we help with oversight and directional management. But the idea is to organize this. We have so many agents, and yet we're so disorganized. And so I feel like if we can just get organized better around the country, we can sort of turn the tide on both the negative policy and negative public perception about us. Problem is everyone's busy. Being a real estate agent is hard. It's a lot of running around. It's I get it, but if we don't take this on and do it, no one is coming to our rescue. There is no one coming to help us. We are in this alone. And so our thought was we had to do something.
Yeah, we did it as much to ourselves as they did it to us.
Yeah,
And
100%.
I mean, 30 years ago when I started in this, that you were way more involved in your, board and your MLS, and they were very local. And maybe that's part of what happened too. I mean, you literally had a Palo Alto district, a Menlo Park district, we had the books back then, and it was all very
Right.
local, but that made it very hands-on at the same time. And as it consolidated, we all got more productive, doing more and more business. I think we sort of abdicated this, to these people that have these associations. And, you got to look hard at ourselves that we also allowed this, culture to flourish, that with the TV shows, that if, you go get your nails done, you sell a $12 million house and that's how it goes,
Right.
I
Exactly.
think we let it all go. And,
Exactly.
it's, the competitive part of it is what interests me the most, that this idea that they have locked down, you know have you gotten pushback from them? Do you feel any sort of sword over your head?
No, I mean they're smart to like try to ignore us
Yeah,
because like then they just give us more oxygen.
yeah,
So no, I get calls from people like who are on the board who are like they really watch everything you do, like and they're tracking whatever. It's fine. I don't care. I know they keep tabs on what we're doing. We hope we make them better. We're not looking to bankrupt them. No, we're not that we ever would. We would like to make them better. And we think that there's space for multiple federal trade groups in the industry. Why not?
right.
Is this the right?
The
Oh, sorry. I
let
was
me
going to
I'll just
ask
ask one more
you
question. The brokerages are kind of complicit in this too. I think not. I don't think they were very aware of it, but they required their, this is how most of them got into the lawsuit, is by requiring their agents to be members.
Yeah.
And some of the large franchises, those franchise agreements have a requirement that you will be a realtor member. They're all really regretting that, because that's what bootstrapped them into the whole lawsuit, was they were complicit by requiring their agents to be members. Have you seen that loosen up yet? I mean, I think it's starting. I know a lot of the franchise, like Anywhere, has said we're not having that requirement of our franchisees anymore. But I'm not sure the brokerages have gone there yet and just allowed their agents to not be members.
No, it's a
Yeah,
start. I mean, people are all firms are waiting to hear what DOJ, what the new DOJ, what
yeah,
their position is going to be on this. There's still a lot of pending litigation, so there's a long way to go to see how all this shakes out. But we want to be in pole position because no one knows. You have to prepare for success and for opportunity, right? Like no one knows how this all shakes out, and we just there are certain opportunities that may fall to us just because we were in pole position for them. So we're
right,
trying to be set up for success.
right. Nikki, you wanted to chime in?
I was going to ask about the MLS, and I don't know if this is the right time to segue to that, but like how the MLS will fall into this, or if I believe you have your own MLS. But before we do that, Lucy had a question which I do think is worth just popping into, which is how would a local group in California be able to compete with the massing lobbying force of CAR? Can you speak to that just
We
briefly on
don't
that?
we don't look at it as competing. We do look at like we would say where are the shortfalls, and then how do we fill the gap?
Yeah, and
But yeah,
I can throw in there for us locally, and Jason, we talked about this a little bit in our pre-call. Everybody on this call, thank you, Silvar, for spearheading the historic, fight, and for spearheading the Menlo Park affordable home fight, and for spearheading all these local issues we've had, which they have not. They have completely failed on every single level to be involved locally. Completely failed. So to Jason's point, where the weak points are, that's a weak point. Now, Carr, they may do better getting in there and doing our representation, but I would throw in there that this paradigm of who they're making rules for is interesting. I mean, so, clear cooperation is a very interesting concept in all of this. Is clear cooperation really about what they say it's about, or is it about protecting their members that sell one house a year because they're scared they're going to use them? I would venture to say it's more about that than the really highfalutin terms that they tend to use. So, you know, you got to ask two questions: where are they feeling you now, and what is their bent? You know, and that's what I like about what you guys are doing, Jason, is that, you know, putting an emphasis on real practicing professionals, making this business, you know, higher, harder to get into, you know, really going where the people on this call are practicing is what is not being done. I think by car even. So that's, you know, that's sort of the answer to how you would compete. I think, you know, all of us on this call got together tomorrow, we do a better job locally with advocacy than we're getting delivered right now.
Yep. Yep. And we hear this around the country too. So it's always different. The issues are different, like the politics are different state by state, but we try to find some way to carve out space where we think we can make an impact. And that's how we would look at it.
I also wanted to bring up, I don't know, I have a poll for clear cooperation, and I know Mauricio had started the pocket listing service way back, and maybe we can talk. The two conversations I think that are important are, how would the MLS look? Are you bringing in a new MLS version? And then also, I'd love to hear about what you think about clear cooperation, and Michael, if there's more to say.
Yeah, and I'll follow up with that, Jason. Do you guys view starting a national MLS as having a competitive aspect to this? Because that's the other part of the MLS system, is it is not competitive. You know, we're all forced into it. So is that kind of your guys' view of that?
We are, through a separate venture, there will be a national listing service next year that's in development right now. That's sort of all I can mostly say about it. But, you know, you are licensed by your state, obviously. But the MLS structure limits your ability to do your trade. I don't know how the MLS works locally where you are, but I'll just by way of example, I live in New York City. I live in an apartment in New York City. I grew up on Long Island. If I want to sell, to join another MLS, to join another Realty board, because the boards are separate in New York and Long Island. But like, to me, the state, I'm licensed by the state. So in my opinion, I should be able to do my trade as I see fit in the state that licensed me. I'm not licensed by NAR. I'm not licensed by the Long Island Board of Realtors. I'm licensed by the state of New York. But there are these restraints of trade that are put up because we have, you know, what is it, 600, 700 MLSs around the country that put up these walls that I don't like. And I think it's a dated legacy system that we've lived with for too long in our industry. And no one said, you know what, this doesn't make sense. There's a better way. And so a national listing service would give you access to the data where you're licensed. In my case, New York and Florida, agnostic of what a local board says is my boundary, because I'm licensed by the state. So I do think that there's a lot of innovation that can be brought forth with a national listing service. And I think that'll be the next leg for us. But it's like a year away. We're doing this the right way, and it'll take some time to get there.
I have a poll.
Yeah, I mean, I think another factor of that whole thing is that just competition. Again, I'm just so interested in the competitive aspect of it, and my eyes have been open to how closed down we've been by no competition. To your point, right. Why can't I put something in this MLS and that MLS and your MLS if I want to? You know,
right. I have no idea.
What's wrong with that? Yeah, you know, what's wrong with that? There's not only that, now your MLS is going to make my MLS go, we better improve our technology, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, and the better agents may leave an MLS that's focusing on one or two deal people to go to an MLS that costs $10,000 a year, but delivers a technology level that we need to do our business. It's really a dawn of a whole new,
right.
You know.
First of all, I don't know what the MLSs look like in your market. I can tell you where I am in South Florida. It's a joke. Like the UX, the interface is like 1997. I never sent it to a client. Yeah. I never sent it to a client. It's embarrassing. I barely even use it. It's so embarrassing to use. why, now they're not all like this around the country. I understand that, but why are so many of them like this? Because there's been no competition. There's been no innovation. Why innovate when you have a monopoly? There's just no need. And so we're left with these horrible systems that are dated in most, I don't know about yours, but in most markets. And it's just it's just sitting there waiting for someone to innovate.
But at the same time, one of the issues with the whole clear cooperation, objective from the NAR standpoint is the fact that, we are required, a lot of us have done a lot of business off market for a number of years. I frankly am not really happy about the clear cooperation. There's a fantastic network that I've helped, that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of, that's a competitive advantage. But if the requirement is that you put it on as coming soon and then so it would still be required to be on our local MLS as coming soon with clear cooperation and then in part then be able to be added to an MLS such as yours. So it's an augmentation, but they don't let you separate them mutually exclusively.
Yeah, I think there's a lot wrong with the clear cooperation. And in this day and age, not more exposure doesn't automatically mean a higher sale. If that was the case, why are Birkin bags not sold on Amazon? It's hard to pay one size fits all today in 2025.
Well, and I would throw in that's also more of the arrogance. If I hear again that you cannot get fair market value for a house without putting it on the market, that's just not true. That's arrogance. That is an arrogant statement that putting it on the MLS is the only way to sell your house, which is part of their whole issue, is that this controlling aspect. We should have choice. Our sellers should have choice on how they want to sell. There are fair housing laws and all kinds of other things to take care of what they think is, what they kind of trot out as clear cooperation prevents discrimination. It prevents, there's laws for that. There's other ways to deal with that. But it's an arrogant statement to say, and Brian, you know this as well as anybody, you've sold houses off market that you have gotten more money for than you would have got going to market, and that it's also an insult to us. We're professionals, and it's also an insult to our integrity. We have ethics. We take care. So it is this patronizing arrogance that just starts and flows around, and is bought into by a lot of people. This, I just can't disagree more with those statements to us that they know how to sell a house better than we do. And I think that Brian's kind of the focus of this, not all the other things they talk about with clear co-op, but the fact that we should have control of how we sell homes and our clients should have control for how they sell their homes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've always felt that it was a self-serving mandate, and God forbid they say, oh, but if you're a member of NAR, because, you have to be a member of NAR to be a member of CAR and blah, 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 blah. And then and ultimately a member of your MLS. But if they say, oh, but you can't post on another MLS, that would be a fatal flaw of them as a requirement in their organization.
Yeah. Well, there are, I mean, in California, Jason, so I don't know if you know this, we're on the verge. You don't have to belong to an association to join the MLS. This California Association of Realtors is a very controlling entity for us because it provides contracts, but our local association does as well. But those car contracts, the car lobbying is very much there. But I don't know how many of you know this, you can actually pay a fee to get those contracts and not be a member of CAR. So, there are chinks in the armor of, I just want choice. I don't want them all to go away. Matter of fact, I'd prefer more of them exist and that to have choice. So there is a situation where you could join an area, you could decide you don't want to belong to NAR, you could decide you don't want to belong to CAR, and you can probably still function. You get a lockbox key, you can be on the MLS. So it's starting here in California. I know other places are a lot more difficult, that the MLS is just tied to, if the association owns it, actually. A lot of associations directly own their MLSs, right? Yeah, is that correct? Right. Yeah. So we're a little bit more fertile ground maybe for, competition, but it's kind of a joke how, when you think about it, we really don't have the ability to do what we want, which we should.
That's our thesis.
Yeah.
There's a poll up there. If any of you haven't seen it, we've got 34% have participated in the poll so far, and 70% have said that they are in favor of removing clear cooperation. But if you've not seen the poll, it would be interesting if you all can just go in there and vote. It obviously is leaning way towards you guys don't like clear cooperation. So I don't think that's a massive surprise based on what you just said.
So Jason, I just what I'm hearing organizationally is you guys are just grassrooting this thing for the moment. It's just, you know, word of mouth. People will form things. You'll kind of see what you got, and then opportunities are going to come up for, you know, associations are going to want to withdraw from the National Association of Realtors. Possibly state associations are going to, you know, dismember, whatever that term is, and then we'll see where the chips fall. That's kind of the game plan.
I mean, yeah, but I think there'll be policy fights that we'll try to lead. We were very active with the VA home loan guarantee program when the settlement terms were first announced. That actually there was language in there that would actually have prevented veterans from using an agent. It was a latent consequence of the settlement term. But we met with 3 committees in Capitol Hill, and we pushed for a workaround language. So we have a fix in place now that allows veterans to pay their agent, because just the way the VA home loan guarantee program was written. And when things come up, we'll get involved. And we do think that just having another voice out there at this very difficult time for our industry, you know, benefits agents. And I think even over the last year, even 6 months, we've had a few, you know, dollars to our name. We've made a difference. We've turned down every sponsor invitation to date, as an example. We weren't even ready to sit down with sponsors who were interested in writing big checks for our association. We just weren't ready. That's how new we are. We're actually finally starting that. I think by next week, we're going to launch our first sponsor program with some national companies that are interested. So we're very, very, very new. And these things, we're already, as it is, trying to boil the Pacific Ocean. So I tell everyone, all things in time, all volunteer organization, building from the ground up, trying to do some good in the industry. And we're just going to see where it goes.
How do they, if you get to, what will be the next steps for people who are, you know, liking what they're hearing is, you know.
Sure. So you can go to we're actually rebuilding our website. It's our first money we spent. We're rebuilding the website right now, but you can go to our old website, soon to be replaced, AmericanREA.org. You can sign up there for a membership, $20 base membership, $1,500 founding membership. And that's good for the rest of the year on dues. And then you'll be getting all of our announcements. You can follow me on social. You want to hear the latest on what we're doing. We update very regularly. We also have a WhatsApp group for members. So every day there's just like a daily conversation going amongst agents around the country in our WhatsApp group. So you're welcome to join that as well and be a part of the conversation. Actually, and ideas come out of the WhatsApp group. There was something we did last week that came out of the WhatsApp group. So we're always like curating different, you know, we're able to pivot on a dime, right? Like someone says, oh, you should do this. And then like an hour later it's done. They're like, wow, like there's no committee, you know, there's no like monthly meeting to go to. We just like do. So it's very different for folks.
Can you talk a little bit? I know, you know, CAR and NAR, the lobbying body is huge, and that's a big, I don't know if it's a benefit, but it's a big feature, I suppose, of those organizations. Do you plan to have lobbyists?
Yes. So in time, we will open a PAC, a federal PAC. We're not ready for it yet. We're focusing on some other things first, but the plan would be to have a PAC in time. But again, you're not going to compete. Like they're the biggest PAC in America. So we have no grand plans to compete with them, but we will be strategic in how we use the money. If not for candidate donations, more for what's called an IE, an independent expenditure, which would be issue advocacy. So, for example, if you don't like the way NAR has like the commercials, for example, which I know have been largely panned, or some of the messaging campaigns they've done about the industry, you know, I think between my background and Mauricio's, and certainly his Hollywood background, we would try to craft different messages.
How do you see education? I mean, you talked about that, wanting to raise the bar. How do you see that making a difference there?
So we want to raise standards in the industry, so we make it harder to become an agent, and then we think that there should be an evolution of education, so it's much more modernized. I can only speak to New York and Florida with my own experience, but I've talked to agents obviously in California about what continuing education is like. For most agents, it's a chore and a bore. Chore and bore is what I hear often. And so our idea is to find ways that it helps to invigorate your business and your interest in pursuing it, as opposed to chore and bore.
Mm-hmm. And on the subject of education, how do you see letting the public know that if their agent is a member of the area, that sets them apart? Like, will you do marketing around that, or, how do you?
So we haven't spent any money on marketing, and I don't think we're going to until we have our sponsors on board right now. But in time, but that's down the road.
Did you do see that happening? Yeah, because the whole Realtor thing is something that I often
But like,
see.
what is a realtor? Like this, I mean, in New York, people call me a realtor. I'm not a realtor in New York. Like, we're not. People use the term realtor synonymous with agent. It's become like an adjective. Like they just, I don't know the value. Does someone decide in California, I'm going to use you and not you as my agent because you're a realtor and she's not? Does that ever happen? Maybe it does. It doesn't happen in the 2 states I'm licensed in.
Michael, have you ever come up there?
No, I mean, it's interesting. Listening to that too. I mean, maybe one of your advocacy things could be to overturn their contract because it's now a word of the English language and it's not a copyright anymore, like Xerox always feared,
right?
And Zillow does now.
They got it copyrighted in 1953.
The roots were good. I mean, real estate in the 1920s was the wild, wild west, and people were getting cheated constantly.
Right.
And all of this concept came out of ethics. And we didn't really talk about ethics, but of creating ethics and then branding a realtor as someone that has agreed to follow this code of ethics. That's lost today. I agree with you. I don't think anybody associates that with, oh, that guy's a realtor, she's a realtor, so she's agreed to a code of ethics, so I'm going to use her instead of somebody else. That's not part of it, but it had its roots in there, and that's an interesting conversation as well. Ethics and community ethics, business ethics, the attempt of NAR and its siblings, or its I should say its progeny, to create an ethical system. I don't feel its effect.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of interesting. Do you think that has a place in the world today, or are we just too new, fast moving that we don't, you just rely on people for their ethics and not for some trade organization's ethics?
No, I mean, they're important. I mean, I would argue that they've disavowed their own ethics.
Yeah, right.
We're developing our own as well. We have a committee. I don't even like committees, but that's an important one. We have a committee working on that actually right now from our own organization, which we'll be rolling out.
What the other thing that kind of came to me too, and I think this is maybe important for you just to answer, but obviously you could have tried to change from within, right? You could have gotten onto your local board or gotten onto state board or gone and ran for something in NAR, but I think I know the answer to the question when you say there's 1,200 board members. The ability to move that battleship is probably not there. I mean, it's so bloated, and maybe it's bloated for that reason, and that's another control factor.
Yeah, it's very hard. Apple has 8 members of their board. I think IBM has 12. NAR has like 1,200. Like, it's weird. You have people they have so many vice presidents, and then when you're a president for your year and you're done, then you get paid as your post-presidential year to help the new president who has a 1-year term, and then they go to the post-presidency. It's a wild bureaucracy that they have. And I think it's an organization that at this point exists to suit itself, like for its own interests. So, I think, change from within. I was always an outsider because I was only a member of NAR for 6 months once I started the NAR Accountability Project, which was our sexual harassment advocacy group. I was so new, it didn't make sense to join and get on the inside. They honestly, they probably could have co-opted me very early on if they, like, in that first week or two or month, they said, hey, we like what you're doing. Why don't you come join us? I probably would have said, yeah, what the hell? They said, why don't you join the board? I'd be like, oh, I'm joining the board. Oh, exciting. I could have then done that. They could have buried me and shut me up. Maybe that would have been a better outcome for them. I don't know.
Well, maybe not, maybe for them, but I don't think for the industry or the
you.
people. So it's a good cause. We are 5 minutes towards 10 o'clock. I'm conscious of time. I'm grateful for your time, Jason. If anybody has anything else, questions they want to throw in the chat, Amy did put in there the area org's website, so you can go there for Jason. And then just for me, Real Elevated, if you want to be notified of new meetings that we have, or sign up, subscribe, so that I know it's just not a subscription. I'm not going to spam you. This is not about me trying to get a database. This truly is trying to elevate the conversations that we have around real estate and lending. And so if you have any topics, please reach out to me. Hopefully, if you're on the call, you know how to reach me, text or email, but Nikki James, you can find me out there. And I'm hoping to also maybe have an in-person one. I'm hearing that we miss seeing each other, and we used to love our left bank times, maybe not every week, but maybe once a quarter. So I'm looking to sponsor that and maybe bring back some in-person meetings, because as I said, your industry is unique and you guys are colleagues as much as you are at different brokerages. So Michael, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Just want to thank Jason, because he alluded to this, but it's so true that we don't have the time for this stuff. So, honestly, thank you for taking the time. I think it's the most difficult part for all of us. Another reason we're maybe in this fix. It's kind of like exercising. You have to just say you're going to do it, and you got to take the time to get involved in this stuff. And I would encourage everybody to get involved in some way and get your voice heard, and don't just, put your head back in your shell and go about your day, which I know is really hard, because this business is hard. It's 24/7 and it never stops. But thank you, Jason. I mean, really, really appreciate the leadership and being out there. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
Absolutely. And hopefully, people know how to reach you if they want to. And I'm hoping that it's relevant for us to have you back to update us, because as you said, you are so new. I have a feeling your changes are going to be fairly rapid here. So we'd love to see you come back.
Sure. Have me back.
Awesome. Well, everybody, it was lovely to see you all. We'll be back with another topic, hopefully something valuable to you all. And thanks for joining.